Hey, by request, let's talk about the fallacies of distribution, undistributed middle, and the illicit major or illicit minor term. Let's look at Barbara, AAA1. All right, AAA1 has three propositions, and all of them are universal, affirmative. All are. Now, the one indicates where the middle term goes, and then we also have S and P, our minor and major terms, to put in. The major term, P, belongs in the first proposition and as the predicate of the conclusion. S, M, and P each appear twice. M in the first figure goes across that way. In the second figure, the middle term lines up on the right side. In the third figure, the middle term lines up on the left side. And the fourth figure puts it diagonally the other way. S and P stand for subject predicate, but we're talking about the subject and predicate of the conclusion. So all S are P, predicate of the conclusion, is the major term, and it belongs in the major premise, which is the first premise. So all M are P, all S are M, and all S are P. Now, the question about distribution is does this statement say anything about all members of one of these categories, right? S, M, and P are categories, and what we're asking when we're asking if the term is distributed is we're asking if the proposition says something about all the members of that category, if what it says about that category is distributed to all the members of the category. Now, when we say that all M are P, we're saying something about all the members of M. We're not saying something about all the members of P. So M is distributed here. The subject of an A term, of an A proposition, is distributed. With an A proposition, we say something about all the members of the subject, but we don't say something about all the members of the predicate. When I say all S's are P, it says something about all the S's. It doesn't say something about all the P's. Now, what about E, I, and O? Well, here we have another syllogism, EIO1, and let's think about which of these terms are distributed, and then let's go back to these two rules for distribution and see what these mean exactly. All right, so first, no M are P. Are we saying something about all the members of the M category? Yeah, we are. We're saying that every one of those members of the M category are not P. And when we say no M are P, we're also saying something about all the members of the P category, that all the P category members are not M. Okay, so M and P are distributed there, right? In a E statement, both the subject and the predicate are distributed. That is to say, an E statement says something about all the members of the subject and the predicate category. Both terms are distributed. Okay, now when we say some S are M, our second proposition of this syllogism, are we saying something about all the members of the S category? Are we saying something about all the members of the M category? Surely not, actually. We're saying about one member of the S category, at least one, that it's M, and we're saying about at least one member of the M category that it's S. Not about all the members either way. Okay, what about our O conclusion here? Some S are not P. What's distributed here? Are we saying something about all the S's or about all the P's? It feels like maybe not, like maybe this would be like the I statement above, but actually we find that there is something. We don't say something about all the members of S. we don't say something about all the members of S, but we do say something about all the members of P. All the members of P are not that one S, that at least one S, that there's at least some of the S's that have no overlap with all of the P's. It feels a little odd, but yeah, for an O statement, the predicate term, the predicate of the O statement is distributed. We're saying something about all the members of the predicate term. Here's another notation. I mean, you probably don't need another notation, but it's interesting, it's useful, it's shorthand. So let me introduce it to you, okay? So for an A statement, we say all S are P, and we put two brackets, right? Two parentheses between the S and P, between the subject and predicate. The first indicates whether this is a universal or particular statement. An A statement is universal, so it faces that way. The second indicates whether it's affirmative or negative. An A statement is affirmative, so it faces that way. E is universal negative. I is particular affirmative. O is particular negative. The advantage of this is that it shows you distribution, because whenever a parenthesis is facing a term, that term is distributed. Subject for A terms, subject and predicate. For E terms, or for E propositions, I's neither term and O's just the predicate. So it's handy, and it's briefer, and it shows you where the distribution stuff is. So if you wanted to use that, feel free on your scratch paper. So what are the rules? First is the middle term, right? The term that connects the subject and predicate terms, the major and the minor terms, needs to be distributed in one of the premises. If you never say anything about all the members of the middle class, the middle category, the category of the middle term, then the middle class disappears anyway, right? But if you never say anything about all the members of the middle category, then you're never going to connect the major and the minor term in a valid way. So the first rule here is that the middle term has to be distributed at least once, obviously in the premises, right? It doesn't appear in the conclusion. If it is not distributed at least once, that's the fallacy of the undistributed middle. So here we've got Barbara, which we probably can already sense, remember, or maybe we could just tell, is a valid syllogism. Do we see that the middle term is distributed at least once? Yeah, absolutely. Right here, all the M's are P. We say something about all the M's. Interestingly, if we switched this around and said all P are M and all S are M, now we'd have A2, different figure, same mood. All P's are M, and all S's are M. Therefore, all S's are P's. How about this? All poodles are dogs, and all Shih Tzus are dogs. Therefore, all Shih Tzus are poodles. That does not work. That's not valid. What went wrong is that this middle term is not distributed anywhere. We never say anything about all the dogs. So how can we connect the major and minor terms there? Doesn't work. All right, what about the second rule? Illicit major, illicit minor. The rule is that if a term is distributed in the conclusion, it has to be distributed in the premise. Let's check on this first rule first. The middle term here, is it distributed? Yeah, it's distributed here. We're saying something about all the M's and all the P's. And it's distributed here. We're saying something about all the M's We're not saying something about all the S's in this statement here. Now down here we say about all the S's that they are not all the P's, that all of this category doesn't overlap with all of that category. So both of these terms are distributed. Is this valid? I don't know. Let's come up with a counterexample. No fish are pelicans. How about all fish are aquatic, therefore no aquatic things are pelicans. Let's see, could we change this a bit to no fish are whales, all fish are aquatic, so no aquatic things are whales. Well, that doesn't work. Aquatic mammals show us a counterexample, show us that it's possible to have true premises and a false conclusion. So it's not valid if we can think of categories that display its invalidity. But what's the rule that's violated here? And what we're going to find is that, hey, S needs to be distributed. If we don't say something about all the whales, or whatever, all the aquatic things, then we can't conclude that no aquatic things are whales. It doesn't work because we didn't say anything about all the S's here, but we are concluding something about all the S's. So because the minor term, S, belongs in the second premise, right? It's the minor term. That terminology is arbitrary, but, you know, keeping it straight keeps us talking about the same things. I know that arbitrary things are harder. But the minor term here is distributed here, but we never said anything that applies to all the S's. So that's the problem. That's the violation. If either the major or the minor term is distributed in the conclusion, if we're concluding something about all members of that category, then it needs to be distributed in the premise, because we need to have the grounds for concluding something about all the members there. Distributed, it's a weird term. It doesn't seem to fit in our vocabulary nicely to mean exactly these things. But it does make sense when you get into it, when you say, hey, you know, if I'm concluding something about all members of the category, I need to have a premise about all members of the category. If I never say anything about all members of the middle term category, then there's no way I can really have connected the subject and predicate terms, the major and minor terms, minor and major terms in the conclusion. So that's the idea there.